When did you find out your spouse loves you even more than you thought? We got married exactly on the 55th day after our first meet. For 2 weeks in this period he was in Germany and Slovakia for a conference, so there wasn't much time spent on call because of different time zones. I can count on our dates. It was only 3 weekends we met and went out. So before wedding we hardly met 4 to 5 times. Got married on October 27, 2017. Jan 6, 2018. After 2 months of marriage I had to move to Germany for 2 months. I was back in March 2018. Married life was going good and we enjoyed roaming out, traveling, dining out and engaging ourselves in family functions. The above information is just to let you all know we had little time spent together. We would leave home to office nearly the same time every day. I would ride my Activa and he would go on his bike. Both of our offices are approximately 12 kilometers away. We were in 8th month of our wedded life. On July 30, 2018, I finished my breakfast early and started 5 minutes earlier than usual time. He was still having his breakfast. Just exactly when my husband started tying the shoelace he received a call from my number but heard somebody else speaking. He was left in shock. Yes, I had met with an accident and was rushed to nearby hospital immediately. I was injured with blood loss, and the person on call informed my husband to be in hospital as early as possible. I suffered a lot of injuries and I was all worried as how would I pass this period. My parents wanted me home as I was in this situation. I do not know why but many Indian girls' parents and the society thinks it's their duty to take care of their daughter under any bad situation/health issues or pregnancy. My parents were not an excuse either. Mom's place is also just 10 kilometers away. Now comes the hero, my husband. My husband was very positive. Though he had pain, it did not show up. My husband did not want to send me. My husband firmly said, "She will be with me and I will take care of her." He assured my parents that he will make me all fine. He took 3 weeks leave to take care of me despite of me staying with in-laws and though my mill convinced that she would take care. But my husband was so adamant and he just wanted to be by my side. As lip laceration was done I was only on liquid diet for 10 days. He would buy fruits and prepare fruit juice for me every 2 hours. He has done this during midnight as well. He would not slip into sleep until he made sure that I was asleep. Every morning he would get a mug of water and wipe my face. He would brush my teeth slowly so as not to hurt. He would take me for dressing every day. He helped me walk. He helped me go through the bad days. He would massage my body as it would go into pain because of staying in bed all day. He would cut my nails. He did not mind that I was not the same girl in appearance and it requires some time to come back to normal. I missed eating rice. He would grind the rice and mix it with rasam or curry and make me eat. By 2 weeks I was little better. I could walk on my own. The stitches on lips dissolved. The swollen face came back to normal. Still there was pain and I was without front teeth. When I smiled it looked bad tongue but he did not mind any of these. I was without teeth for complete 2 months as dentist could not take measurements until it completely healed. I started working from home from 3rd week. I never thought I could be okay so soon. It's all my husband's support and care that made the wounds heal faster. I realized I was blessed. It was not less than taking care of a baby at home. He did it with smiling face. Accident made me go weak both mentally and physically but my husband made me strong. He made me understand it was okay to look bad. I never dreamt of such a person in my life before marriage or even after marriage. I knew he loved me but never thought of odd situations. He proved he is a gentleman. My parents are very happy and proud of their son-in-law. I then knew he loves and cares for me more than the way I thought. What is the most disturbing thing you ever did? I was a weird kid growing up, really weird. It was mostly because I was being mistreated at home and forcibly isolated. My social skills were so underdeveloped that I had difficulty reading human faces aside from my grandmother, grandfather, and father. Being the weird kid meant I was a juicy target for bullies. It never stopped. But there was one bully that I hated more than any of the others. We'll call her Holly. This girl never passed up an opportunity to make my life hell, and since she lived across the street from me there was nowhere I could avoid her. Holly treated me like garbage. Here are a few examples. She put dog crap in our mailbox on a regular basis. She let my dog out of my yard and I was never able to get her back. She would also sit on her porch with her friends and roast the hell out of me to entertain them if I so much as put a toe outside of my front door. It went on for years. I hated her with the fiery passion of 1,000 suns, but while my grandmother was still alive there was nothing I could do about Holly. If I did anything to her or fought back in any way my grandmother would punish me for it and I was more afraid of her than I was Holly, for a very good reason. So I made a plan. I suffered through all the abuse and promised myself that when I was older I would make Holly pay for what she did to me. Thinking of what I was going to do to her when the time was right was sometimes the only thing that kept me going. Over time, Holly grew up, and eventually she left me alone and stopped being an a-hole. Unfortunately for her by then it was too late. I didn't give a crap about her new moral epiphany. I had been nursing my grudge for 2 decades and it was time for a reckoning. I was going to destroy that bitch. When my grandmother finally died, it was go time, and I'd had 20 years to plan. I wasn't idle while I waited. I'd made it my mission in life to learn as much about Holly as possible, and to do it I became friends with a few people on the periphery of her social circle. Eventually, I knew more about her and her life than her own mother did. The first step I took in my plan was getting her fired from her job. It took longer than I would have liked, but eventually I managed it. Holly worked at a doctor's office, and I knew that the doctor she worked for was super Christian. Very straight edge, upstanding type of guy. He also had a huge influence on the local community. I decided to become a patient at his office, scheduling my visits to be on the days Holly was off work. After a couple of visits I just happened to notice Holly in the staff photo on the waiting room wall. I made a show of looking surprised and then concerned. I got to the exam room, and the doctor came in shortly after. The expression on my face got his attention, and he asked me what was wrong. I told him that even though I didn't want to, as a Christian I couldn't keep my knowledge a secret and still sleep at night because I just couldn't let him endanger his soul and reputation by doing nothing. I had his full attention, then, and I asked him as one fellow Christian to another not to tell anyone where he got the information I was about to give him. After he promised he would, I told him that I knew that Holly was using illegal substances. He was absolutely floored, and at first he didn't believe me. I told him that I understood his skepticism entirely, but it was easy enough to prove or disprove my information with a substance test. If I was wrong, he lost nothing. If I was right, he was saving himself from trouble down the road. He finally agreed to test her, and he tested everyone else too so that it didn't look like Holly was the only target. See, I wasn't actually lying. Holly smoked a lot, and I knew that because it was my dad she used to get it from. He'd been her grass dude since she was like 15. Her test came back positive for grass. Oopsie. The doctor fired Holly on the spot when the results of the urinalysis came back, and then he called me to thank me for telling him what was going on. And before he hung up he told me that I truly walked with the Lord. Y'all will never know how hard I had to fight not to laugh at the depths of his wrongness. I thought I was going to pop a blood vessel. Phase 1, complete. I know what you're thinking. It's just a job and it's not like she can't go get another one, right? Losing a job isn't the end of the world. You'd be wrong. Remember how I said that her boss had a very high reputation in our area? That man called every single hospital and doctor's office in the state personally to make sure that none of them would hire Holly and risk liability and loss of community trust for associating with her. Holly's field of study was all pertaining to the medical profession, so her education was rendered worthless because nobody would hire her. I wasn't done yet. Nope, not even close. She lost her job, and because she had no income her car got repossessed. She still had her family though, 2 kids and a fiancé. Who needs families? A Murite? With the help of a good friend of mine, we catfished the crap out of her fiancé. My friend is hot, and she let me use pictures of her to prove that she was really real. She even got on Skype with him once. When he finally made the arrangements for a face-to-face encounter and booked a hotel room, I texted the screenshots of everything to Holly from a burner number. To say the excrement impacted the oscillating unit would be a vast understatement. They broke up. The whole thing was an ordeal and Holly was devastated. She had 2 kids, no job, and now no fiancé who could help her keep the family afloat. A normal person would have stopped then. Unfortunately I am not normal and I was going full scorched earth. I seethed for 20 years. No way in hell was I going easy on her. Phase 3. With her fiancé gone and no job, Holly was struggling badly. She needed money and she needed it quickly before she and the kids got evicted. Dope is a giant problem in my area. It's high risk but it's also fast money, and so I started subtly mentioning Holly's situation among my more legally questionable family. Eventually one of my family's friends who happened to be a dope cook got in contact with Holly and offered her a load of cash to let him cook dope at her house. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, 2 days and then done forever. Holly was desperate so she said yes. Everything went smoothly at first, but dead in the middle of the cook, someone called in an anonymous tip about an active cook in progress to the local unit. They rolled up on Holly's house at about 3 a.m. and caught everybody inside, including Holly red-handed. Watching her cry when they handcuffed her and put her in that police cruiser was one of the most gloriously satisfying moments of my life. She was in deep legal doo-doo. And to make a bad situation even worse, most houses where labs are discovered aren't deemed habitable afterwards because the toxic fumes from the chemicals used to make the substance get everywhere, and it's super hard and time-consuming to clean. It's up to the property owner to either hire a hazmat team to clean it, or condemn it and tear it down. A lab cleanup costs thousands of dollars. It would have cost more money to clean it than the entire property was worth. So it got torn down, with everything Holly owned still inside. See, you can't take things out of a lab because they're going to be covered in toxic residue. It can make you very sick, especially young children. Everything in the residence is usually counted as a loss. Now, some people sneak in and grab stuff anyway, but whatever, it's their funeral. But since Holly was still sitting in jail, there was no way for her to get anything, and none of her close family were interested in risking getting caught sneaking into the house and being accused of stealing or tampering with a crime scene. Holly ended up in jail for a while, and while she was gone the court gave their father, ex-fiancé, sole custody of their children, and Holly was only given supervised visitation. 2 hours every Saturday if I recall correctly. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and mine was freezing. I was behind every single bad thing that happened in Holly's life, in one way or another, for an entire 5-year period. What are your favorite core memories? My father would get ready for work long before any rooster crowed. My mother, sister and I were all intimately aware of his moonlit ritual. We slept in the same bedroom, a trait we inherited from his Thai background. A few minutes after the alarm clock sprung him to life, he would let out a long sigh, trudge into the bathroom in his underwear and shower. He moved silently, trying his best not to wake us. Despite his quiet footsteps, I never fell back asleep until the ritual's conclusion. Before leaving to embark on his 2-hour commute into the Bay Area, he'd run his hands through my hair, stroke my meaty face and kiss me goodbye. It was my father's private way of making me special. He endured this long commute so my sister and I could wake up 3 hours later, take a short walk across the street and arrive at school. This daily arrangement had one serious downfall. Upon arriving home, after battling hours of gridlock traffic, he'd have little energy and no patience left for us. I'd beg him to come outside, wrestle around, or play a game of catch with me, but he rarely acquiesced to my pleas. My life at elementary school provided me with no productive outlets. My socially graceful 6th grade sister knew everyone who was anyone. In contrast, I spent my recesses meandering around the playground as a dorky 3rd grader. I had spent the better part of a year smitten over a leggy blonde girl named Valerie, and up until this point, I possessed little interest in school politics. But when our teacher asked if anyone would be interested in running for office, Valerie's hand had gone up. I instantly saw how these two seemingly divergent interests could intersect if I developed a keen interest in politics. I declared myself a candidate for the hidden purpose of winning a girl's affection. Valerie registered for the position of hostess. Therefore, I signed up for host to increase the amount of time we would get to spend together. Each candidate had 1 week to campaign, advertise, and prepare a speech on why they should be elected to represent the student body. I developed a rousing speech to secure the student body vote. This being my first venture into public speaking, my grandfather decided to serve as my head speech writer. After hours of writing, erasing, and rewriting, we came to the conclusion that I should stay away from education. Instead, I needed to highlight the critical need for longer recesses and lunches. My sister would make the perfect lobbyist, but she didn't want anything to do with me. I couldn't blame her. I'd recently watched the movie Rad and became infatuated with BMX. My mother, trying to satisfy my infatuation, bought me a green BMX sweater. I loved this sweater so much that I decided to wear it to school every day and earn the unflattering nickname Uniform Boy from my classmates. But after a shady backroom meeting I wasn't privy to between my grandfather and sister, he was able to persuade her to publicly admit our blood ties and hired her as a lobbyist. My father was ecstatic with my decision to campaign for office. I had temporarily suspended the old routine of pestering him to play a game of catch after he got home from making his 2-hour commute into the Bay Area. He preferred our new routine where he sat on the couch, ate his dinner, and watched me practice my speech while I stood on stacked yellow book pages in our family room. Election day would be held outside on a sunny California afternoon. My confidence was sky high until I arrived at the school courtyard and beheld a sea of students sitting in neat rows of blue chairs. The hours I had spent practicing in front of my supportive family couldn't have prepared me for speaking in front of hundreds of judgmental peers. I looked down at my piece of paper and mentally rehearsed each word as my sweaty hands smudged out my sloppy handwriting. The only exterior stimulus I took note of were the popular students receiving a loud applause. Unpopular students, my social caste, were shown pity with a polite golf clap. As I heard my name called, a tight knot of nerves formed in my chest. I slinked to the microphone, not tripping on any stairs as I had feared, and started speaking without hesitation. Halfway through my speech I sensed something was wrong. Most of the audience had puzzled looks on their faces. A few of the older kids, probably led by Keith, were laughing at me. Overwhelmed by my nerves, I hadn't realized the microphone was inches above my head. Nobody had heard a word I said. My first savior was a thoughtful teacher who lowered the microphone and told me to start over. In a panicked moment I recalled the gravelly voice of my grandfather who said, "Look above the audience if you get nervous." This sage wisdom commanded my eyes to the back of the courtyard where I found my second savior standing in the shade of a skinny tree with sun-tanned arms resting on his puffed-out chest. It was my father. As our eyes met he tilted his head and revealed a radiant white smile. I'm sure it was the same smile he'd used as a nightclub singer in Bangkok to woo my mother. He now unearthed it, years later, to inspire me. I started my speech over, and delivered each of my carefully crafted words into the microphone. I felt the syllables and phrases about the dire need for longer lunches erupt from my diaphragm. I looked every one of the older kids in the eye and pounded my fist into the podium to conclude my speech. My lobbyist sister performed her duties admirably as the entire 6th, 7th, and 8th grade roared a voracious approval for longer recesses. My campaign was sparked for Valerie's affection, something I would never win, but ended with a victory of incalculable value, my father's admiration. In the following years I've won a few more elections, but never felt as happy as I did on that day. I thought this feeling was forever confined to my childhood memories until I performed my stand-up comedy bit in front of my father for the first time. After telling my best joke of the night, amidst the laughter of the audience, I happened to catch a glimpse of him from a few rows back. The lights were still bright, but I was able to see his crossed arms, puffed-out chest, and radiant smile. He looked and I felt exactly the same.